Hi, everybody. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. It's an online platform for science and engineering professionals. The first offering of the platform is a public speaking course called Teach the Geek to Speak. To learn more about it, you can go to teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Today, my guest is Chris DeWitt. He worked in engineering for quite some time before transitioning into business development. His business, One2One Leaders, offers training and mentoring to engineers. I'm interested to learn more about his transition to business development, the motivation for starting One2One Leaders, and his public speaking exploits. Welcome to Teach the Geek Interviews, Chris.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you for having me.
First question, from the little bit of research I did on you, I saw that you got your degree in mechanical engineering. What was the motivation for that?
I started as an electrical person. I went into the United States Air Force as an electronics guy. Did a lot of electronics work, and I just didn't like it. So later in life, I went back to school, and everyone was like, "Just go get a business degree, do something easy." And I said, "No, I didn't want to do that." And I'd always been intrigued by mechanical things, So I jumped into mechanical engineering, and it was great. I enjoyed the whole process.
Oh, wow. So did you go to school? I'm guessing because you were in the Air Force first, you went to school typically got your engineering degree at an age it's typically older than the majority of the students. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say. I was, oh my gosh, I'm doing math in public. I was 35-ish.
Oh, wow. What was that like going back to school at that age?
Whoa, a little tough. It was all at night. And in the last semester, I had twins at home, boy-girl twins at home. So it was challenging, but I have to tell you, it was a wonderful experience for me doing it as an older adult. I think you learned a lot of things, and it later in life, like right now, it made me realize that, when we talk about leadership, schools don't teach us about leadership. Engineering schools, as I'm fond of saying, teach us about numbers and math and that kind of stuff. But they don't teach us about leadership. And I think that's lost when you go the normal path at 18, 19 years old. You realize it later in life.
I have a brother-in-law, and he went back to school in his 40s, so he was even older than you. And I think the benefit of doing it when you're older is that you're a little more focused. When you go straight out of high school, it's almost as if you're doing it because it's just what's expected. But when you go back, when you're older, you have a purpose in being there, and you're not you're not messing around. You're paying the money to be there, and you're going to do the work, and you're not going to be partying on the weekends. Typically what you do when you're 18, 19. You're there to get it done.
Yeah, and most of the people that I went to school with that were my age were working and going to school. So I was very fortunate that the company I worked for paid for my school. But they expected a certain amount of a level of grades and all those other things. But and another thing that I wanted to share with you, in high school, I went to a vocational technical high school for electronics. And, there's this new push these days for, we don't necessarily have to go to college. We can learn trades. I'll tell you, it's a wonderful school for someone like me who wasn't quite ready to go to college, right out of high school. But, we need tradespeople too. So I have a little bit of a unique perspective on the young people going into college and some of the older people that are just starting college, like your brother-in-law.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on that, Chris. Especially in the Western world, there's this push once you finish high school. If you're going to be successful in life, you have to go to college, and no one really ever talks about the trades. You can become quite well off, as a tradesperson. You learn it, you do it for a while, start your own, your own business up. Next thing you know, you're in the 1%.
Yeah, you need business skills and you need leadership skills. You almost need to be, so you can become a plumber or a welder or something. You need to know more about accounting if you're going to start your own business than you do about your own trade. I mean, you need to know how to be a plumber and a welder, of course, but you've got to learn those other, they call them soft skills, but I don't know if that's the right term or not.
Yeah. So I also noticed that you got your MBA. So I guess having a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering wasn't enough for you. You wanted to go back to school and get an MBA too. What was the motivation for that?
Yeah, I went from working at a large manufacturing and engineering company and working in some great advanced design groups. And the last group I worked in engineering was called Advanced Design and Business Development. And I was doing a lot of engineering work and I loved it. And then one of the business development guys comes to me one day and he said, I want you to go see a customer with me. And I'm like, wow, okay, that would be fantastic. And I went and I loved it. And I wanted to be a business development guy. And I thought, to go out into this world, the next thing I need, I think, is an MBA to kind of round myself out. So an MBA, and I finished my MBA in 2015, I think it was. And so I was even older, obviously, right? But the great experience when you're a little bit older to get an MBA, you literally go to school on Wednesday night and go to work the next day and apply the stuff on Thursday. So, I coach and mentor a lot of young engineers, and I say, an MBA is a great thing. Don't think just because you're in a technical field that you shouldn't have an MBA, because it really kind of, rounds you out. And I don't care what age you are. In fact, one of my MBA professors used to say, MBA should expire because you learn these things so if you go to get your MBA at 21, you get out of college and you go right and get your MBA. When you turn 40 and 50, there's a whole different set of things you need to know. So MBAs were great. It was a great learning experience for me.
If MBA should expire, does that mean that professor should retire?
Well, what a great topic, right? The whole, my professors were quite old, to be honest with you. I went to RPI, and great guys like this, professors from Yale and Harvard. I mean, just great guys. But, there is something to be said for professors that don't keep up with the trends. And maybe they need younger guys like us in there teaching MBA courses. Yeah,
I mean, the only reason I even thought of that is if your professor is the one saying that, MBA should expire, well, maybe you should too, especially if you're old. Get some new guys in there.
It's a great point, right?
So, obviously you eventually moved into business development, but before that, you were an engineer. What type of work did you do as an engineer?
I worked at a major helicopter company. So all the work I did was in either new helicopter design, mechanical design, or a lot of my work was not after, kits kind of things, especially in this advanced design and business development group. A customer would come in and he'd say, hey, listen, I love your helicopter, but I need it to do something that it doesn't do today. So we would design kits to do whatever the customer needed, whether it be more fuel or go faster or, different things. But it was all aerospace work.
Okay. Was the work that you were doing as an engineer, I mean, you started off in electronics in the Air Force, and then you get a degree in mechanical engineering. Did that prepare you for the work that you ended up doing as an engineer, or were you kind of caught off guard by the work that you were doing?
Initially, my Air Force training did prepare me for the job that I entered into the company to do, but it didn't take me too long to realize I wasn't real crazy about that kind of work. I originally started right out of the Air Force wiring helicopters, literally on the assembly line, wiring them. And then I took my Air Force training and I went into test. So there was a lot of building test sets and testing electrical systems and that. And that was kind of the time that I decided, well, I really didn't care for that too much. So that's when I started my mechanical engineering path.
Well, I know that I guess the initial spark to move into business development was when you went on that trip with the business development person. I mean, was there any other motivators for you to switch entirely from engineering to business development? Seems like a pretty big transition.
It is, but I would contend the best business development people are engineers. And when you have engineers, and this is kind of the reason that I'm doing what I'm doing today, when you have engineers that can speak and can convey a message and can communicate, that's a powerful thing, especially in the business development role. So when you're speaking to a customer and they're used to the car salesman kind of guy, which everybody hates. But when they get into something, they say, hey, listen, how fast can this go, or what's the load? And if you can at least just give a little bit of engineering background into those kind of conversations, for me, it's been very powerful. And it's funny for your listeners, I spent many years, hiring different people into different roles within this company. And even today, I just look, at roles that are out in the world, and people will be looking for a specific job. I don't care what it is. And they'll say, should have this specific degree or an engineering degree. People think, and I think most companies think, that engineers have a skill set that translates to other work. And the thing that's holding us back as a group of people really is leadership. And that's kind of that's why I'm doing what I want to do. I want to help engineers think they can become leaders and then get into these roles. And they don't have to be engineers. They don't have to be engineering leaders. They can be business development leaders, or they can be finance leaders. But just realize that they've got that skill set within them, and do a little development with communication, and you've got a powerful background.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. Although if it was engineers that are going to be running the finance department, I certainly wouldn't qualify. I took a course my freshman year in finance. I think it was like financing for engineers, something like that. Probably one of my worst grades.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, finance might be a tough one, but business development translated so easily for me. The gentleman who took me on that first business development trip, if you will, became a good friend of mine. And years later, I said, "Why did you pick me?" He goes, "You were an engineer that could put two sentences together. You need to be a little bit personable when you're meeting with people.
Wow. Did that person ever think that you could take his job?
I think he did, actually. I think he thought that, well, he was a great mentor to me. He was just a wonderful guy. He was one of those people that would hire you. And I ended up, by the way, my next job, I ended up working for him when I transferred into a business development role. He was never one of those guys that was afraid to hire someone who was, smarter than him or had a better skill than him. I don't think I was smarter than him. But you know what I mean? He wasn't afraid of people who could do the job as well as him, or maybe even better than him.
Yeah, you weren't smarter than him for sure. That was a Freudian slip on your part.
Well, maybe.
Yeah. When it comes to intelligence, us engineers aren't exactly lacking for confidence, I don't think.
No, it's funny on my website. I have a quote in there, and I say, "Leadership is hard, but you've already gotten an engineering degree, which, by the way, is really hard. So if you did that already, believe me, that next step is not as hard as that."
For sure. So
In
when it
fact,
comes,
in
oh,
fact,
go ahead.
talk about MBA. I thought the MBA was difficult, but not like my engineering degree. I mean, nothing like that.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. When it comes to your business, one-to-one leaders, what services do you provide?
Well, we're a new company. I do a lot of mentoring today, so not really a service. And I'm my interests are speaking, public speaking, and speaking to groups, especially engineering groups, about leadership. My future, the vision for me is to reach out to academic organizations and maybe start speaking to engineers at a younger level. And just in the last couple weeks, funny enough, I took an online class about leadership through my work, and I have to tell you what, the I got bit by the bug of training. I think training is going to be the next step for me. I would just love to roll into a company or in an organization for 2 or 3 days and give a real, no kidding, session and training on leadership. But that's our core is leadership, taking engineers and making them into leaders. And I don't care what level. People think, oh, leaders are the CEO and the VP. No, every level needs leadership. I don't care if you're the first day coming in as an engineer or the mid-range. Leadership is a trait that will help everybody throughout the complete organization.
What are the most important characteristics, in your opinion, that a leader must have?
You have to be able to communicate. And I think one of the biggest ones is empathy and compassion. I've been in a lot of situations where I've worked for people and I worked with people who just had no compassion, no empathy, and people just ran away from them as fast as they could. And these were people who were, I'd say it like this, they were bosses, but they weren't leaders. And then I saw those people gravitate toward other people that weren't bosses, but they were leaders. And that taught me a lot. One of the other things that I like to speak about is you can learn leadership by watching people be good leaders, and you can watch for them being bad leaders. In fact, you probably learn more from people being bad leaders. And it's funny because just a week or so ago, something was going on at the place I work today. And I sat back and I went, wow, that was truly just a horrible leadership trait being exhibited. And no kid, Neil, 2 seconds later, I get a text from one of my colleagues. And he said the exact same thing. He goes, wow, that was probably the worst piece of leadership I've ever seen in my life. So people realize this stuff and inherently they know it. But, we as engineers know, I think the good traits, sometimes we struggle with how to apply them. And that's one of my big motivators, is helping people apply good traits and not replicate bad traits.
Similarly to people telling you when you finish high school, you go to college because that's the natural progression. I think
Right.
a lot of times in companies, once you're an individual contributor for a while, many people think that the natural progression is to become a manager of people. And I don't think enough people take into account the various traits that you were just talking about when it comes to becoming a manager. I mean, just because you're good at your particular job as an individual contributor does not mean you have the skills to be a manager. And I think people don't take as much stock in that as they should.
Right. Nor do they have the desire sometimes, right? Some people, I've worked with wonderful engineers over the years, and they just wanted to do what they were doing. They were really good at it. They progressed through their career, and their leaders would say, "Don't you want to move to the next step?" No, I'm totally happy doing design. I'm totally happy doing whatever I'm doing. And companies struggle with that. Companies struggle with saying, you don't get to be labor grade X until you're a certain level. Well, individual contributors, we need to take care of those individual contributors, because you have somebody who's got 20, 30 years of experience, and at 15 years, you say, okay, there's no more potential to move forward, monetarily anyway, right? And they have no desire to move forward in a leadership way. Wow, what a loss to lose someone with a lot of experience like that. And by the way, those people go to your competitors. People don't leave their core. My experience, they don't leave their core they don't go too far away from their core, I should say. So when you treat someone poorly, they go somewhere else. And most of the time, it's your competitors.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, you should be grateful for them, because they know themselves well enough to know that they don't want to be a manager of people. If you have somebody in that role, you want them to have the compassion, the empathy, and those various skills of being able to communicate with people. If those people don't have those skills and don't care to develop them, you want to keep them as far away from any kind of manager position as possible.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. In one of my focuses is that it's for younger engineers, but it's also for that mid-level engineer who does want to move forward and maybe be an engineering leader, or maybe branch out to another group. It really doesn't matter, but is struggling with how to move forward in a leadership role. Like I said, and I agree with you, if people don't want to be leaders, well, no. If people don't want to be bosses, you can be a leader at any level, right? But if you don't want to lead an organization as far as functionally, right, as a boss, if you will, you can still learn a lot by being a leader. But we want to help people who want to make that next step forward and who want to do better in their current roles and be leaders.
Yeah. When it comes to public speaking, is that something you've always been good at? And if not, what have you done to get better at it?
I don't know that I'm good at it now, to be honest with you. So in January of 2020, I think it was January, decided to sign up with the National Speakers Association and take a class, because I've spoken. I've spoken for work. I've spoken for different, for things I've done, but I really wanted to focus on doing something for myself as far as a speaking role. It's been a wonderful experience. Taught me a lot about how to speak and who to speak to. So that's been great. Was I always great at it? No, but one of the things, I just shared this experience with someone the other day. In my early 30s, I took up playing guitar, and I had a great teacher, and he said, "You're never really a guitar player unless you play out with people, till you get out there and play with people." And I took that to heart, and I went looking for people to play with, and I never played any kind of Irish music, but I ended up in an Irish band. So for 5 years, I stood up in front of people playing and singing in front of an Irish band. And I'll tell you what, you're in a bar at 11, 12, 1 in the morning, and with half the crowd, drinking and getting ready to go, you learn how to be present in front of people, and how to, you know what the biggest thing I learned from that was, you can make mistakes, and most of the time people don't even know you did. And you just have to be credible, and you've got to stay on topic, and, focus on the song you're playing and get through that and move on to the next song. It's no different with speaking, right? Fix on a topic, move to your next topic, and what they always say, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end of every story.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're playing guitar in a bar at midnight, I highly doubt anyone would notice any mistakes, because, they're kind of drunk at that point.
Yeah. As we were sometimes too.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
That helped too.
Yeah. When it comes to public speaking, do you ever get nervous? And if so, how do you deal with your nerves?
Yeah, I think everyone gets nervous. I think if you're not getting nervous, there's something wrong. For me, the biggest thing is preparation. Just, know that you're prepared. Keep in mind that people want to hear what you're saying. And if you're prepared, for the most part, people will, I think everyone worries when they're speaking that everyone's going to critique them. Oh my gosh, if I say something wrong, everybody's going to. No, I think genuinely people will gravitate towards your subject. And if you misspeak, they'll go, okay, no, what's a big deal? He said one word wrong, right? But it's preparation. Be ready for what you're doing. I don't have any other real tricks to be, you just work through your nervousness. One great trick that the NSA classes taught me was you've got to, you open with something to engage the audience. You never walk in and say, hello, good day. Never the yes, no questions. You stand up there and go, walk out and say, how many leaders do we have here today? People, now I'm engaged here, right? And they raise their hand. Get them to be engaged. Feel like you're part of the audience, and pick a person. Focus on that person. Pick another person. So I think it's a personal thing, how we all have to get over our nerves, but you figure it out.
I think when it comes to nerves, if you're not nervous, it means you don't care about what you're talking about. So I agree with you. Something's wrong if you're not nervous before you speak in front of people. At least if you care. If you don't care, maybe you go up there and just like, man. You get what you get out of it,
Yeah. One of my good friends is a painter, and he always said, people look at your painting and they want to see something in the painting. So you draw a tree and you're like, wow, that barely looks like a tree. People want to see a tree. When they want to see a tree, they'll look at that and go, oh, that's a tree, right? If it's not absolutely perfect, every little thing, people don't care. People want to be associated with what you're saying and what you're showing or portraying in a painting, right? But genuinely, there's no hecklers out there looking to take you down.
Yeah, it's not exactly like a comedy club or something like that.
Right, exactly right. Yeah.
And if it was, that'd be kind of weird. Like, you suck. Get off the stage.
Yeah. Well, yeah, especially in a company environment, you're trying to tell somebody, I think a leader is this. You suck. Leaders aren't that. Okay.
Don't forget to tip your waitresses.
Yeah, right. That's right.
So I noticed that when you said that you were taking a class with NSA, the majority of people that I've ever spoken to about public speaking said that their first foray into it was through Toastmasters. Is there a reason you decided to do an NSA class as opposed to doing Toastmasters?
The only reason, I have a good friend of mine who is a certified speaker, and she's an NSA member. And I reached out to NSA predominantly because of her recommendation. But I will say in in my younger developmental years through the company I worked for, they did promote Toastmasters. In fact, there was a local Toastmasters right at the company. I didn't really have the interest at that time, so I didn't join. But no, I mean, I think you saw my I spoke on Aditya's webcast, and he went to Toastmasters first and then went to NSA kind of afterwards. So I think Toastmasters is a great organization, and I think they give you a little more of the fundamentals, how many how many times, you don't put your hands in front of the microphone or the camera, that kind of stuff, right? NSA is more of the business of speaking, which is where I thought I was in my career, if you will.
Okay, I got you. This has been real interesting learning more about you, Chris. Is there anything else you'd like to add about things that you're working on?
No, the only thing would be great is, at my site is www.one2one, it's ONE2 leaders.com, and I put out a weekly blog. It's an engineering leadership blog, and every week I send something out. I've only been doing it, I think it's 2 months now, and the response has really been tremendous. People are finding guidance in it, and I've taken a lot of my mentoring experience and trying to put it into words, which has been great for me, because hey, I am an engineer. I'm not the best writer in the world, So, but if people could go look at that, and that would be wonderful. And my next step, I think, is training, and just be on the lookout for that. And that's it. Maybe when I'm fully training people, I'll come back on and give you an update, Neil.
You got it. Well, everybody, that marks the end of another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson, founder of Teach the Geek. It's an online platform for science and engineering professionals. The first offering is Teach the Geek to Speak. It's an online public speaking course. To learn more about it, you can go to teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, please take care. Stay safe out there. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Neil.